Welcome to Civitas LA, where we feature diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. Each week, we hear and learn from and are inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making Los Angeles a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Now more than ever, we aim to promote civic discourse, elevate grassroots engagement and participation, and foster community connections across the greater Los Angeles region while celebrating diverse, emerging, and new voices in the civic conversation. So with us today, we are delighted to have Chris Fraley, board member of StartOut, with us. Founded in 2009 to promote LGBTQ equality and fight discrimination in the business world, and to elevate and celebrate LGBT entrepreneurship and innovation, today, StartOut's LA chapter has over 1,800 members and continues to grow. Chris, welcome. And since this episode is being recorded in June, although probably aired a little bit later, let me first start out by welcoming Chris and saying Happy Pride Month, Chris.
Thank you. Happy Pride Month to you too.
Excellent. Chris, we are so glad that you are here, and we're glad to elevate and promote the work that StartOut is doing. Let's jump right in. Can you give our audience a quick overview of StartOut, how it came about, and the purpose behind it?
Sure. Well, the StartOut was formed over 10 years ago to really create an ecosystem of LGBT entrepreneurs where we could really support each other, help each other grow our businesses, and provide a number of different programs to the community.
Tell us about this community, the types of businesses and industries, and particularly, I'm curious about the nature of the companies that StartOut supports compared to, say, traditional chambers of commerce, for example.
StartOut is really focused on groups and companies that are building scalable businesses. So, for example, I think of the various chambers of commerce are focused on business owners. The goal of StartOut is to focus on companies that are going down the VC route or using technology to scale or in that entrepreneurial community.
Gotcha. How do you go about building and serving this rapidly growing community of entrepreneurs and innovators? What are some of the unique challenges of this particular subset of businesses?
Well, it's really been word of mouth growing the community. We somehow always find each other. It's really important. Building a business is really difficult. You need emotional support. You need people that have been there before you. There's certainly a certain amount of homophobia out there still, which makes it sometimes adds an extra layer of complexity to our community.
Well, I know a few years ago, StartOut commissioned a report. I think this was the first time it commissioned this report entitled The State of LGBT Entrepreneurship in the U.S. Can you share any takeaways from that report?
Yeah, there were really two data points that I found really quite shocking. And we tracked the migration of LGBT entrepreneurs from where they started their business to where they essentially grew their business. And interestingly, 78% of companies with LGBT founders moved or relocated their company to California, New York, and Illinois. When adding all the jobs that were created through those LGBT entrepreneurs, basically 1 million jobs were lost to states that were unfriendly to the LGBT community, to states that had more favorable LGBT policies in their community. The other thing that was pretty shocking was the amount of LGBT founders who are closeted when raising capital. And this report is a few years old, but I frankly think that over the last few years, we've had some regression in this area. But when we did the report, we found that only 63% of LGBT founders came out to their investors during the process. And actually 37% chose not to identify as part of the LGBT community. That's a pretty shocking number. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's odd because it really shouldn't even be a topic of conversation, but at the same time, you're getting to know someone and, they ask you what you did over the weekend. Are you the type that are going to change pronouns? Are you going to talk about your husband? Are you going to talk about, that you went to Provincetown? And obviously, yeah, I mean, trust is absolutely paramount. If they don't believe they're seeing your authentic self, it's jarring.
I know, certainly entrepreneurship and innovation plays an increasing role in driving overall economic activity. Do you think this is a particularly good time to be LGBTQ founder?
Well, certainly, I would like to think that StartOut has done a really good job of creating a support network. But some other studies that were done. This one actually wasn't from StartOut, but from GLAD. They do regular studies of how the overall community
Is represented.
represented, and what are the attitudes towards LGBT people. And about 38%, I don't have the exact number, but it was somewhere in that range. 38% of people were not comfortable with a LGBT CEO. And that was not, that was actually not, they did that through various regions, and that number really didn't change from different regions. So they're
Really, not even between sort of Midwest and Southeast and California.
Nope. I mean, frankly, even within LA, you go, in certain parts of Southern California are certainly more welcoming than others.
Well, I know, and this tracks that with regards to certainly Los Angeles. I'm interested in this piece that StartOut a couple years ago launched something called the StartOut Pride Economic Impact Index. And this was a joint research project supported by JP Chase and looked at the contributions of LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs on jobs in the overall economy. Can you speak to this work and particularly, what we can learn from this research here in Los Angeles?
It's really a fascinating project, and we're really thrilled that JP Morgan was so generous. And we've also had a number of other terrific sponsors. The chair of the board of or the former chair, she is no longer the chair right now, but she's really one of the world's leading data scientists, and she created this unbelievable tool that really allowed policymakers and decision makers the tools to really understand how friendly their city is to LGBT entrepreneurs. And she also did an estimate based upon the results of how many jobs are being lost as a result of the policies that are not supportive to LGBT business owners. It's currently in beta form, but I have looked at some of the data, and LA actually ranked surprisingly low on the index. And some of the metrics that were used were, how many groups have had an exit, how many groups have raised capital, how many groups are there, and when you compare it to for example, San Francisco was much, I think that by far, probably by a factor of maybe even as high as 10, it ranked, much higher than almost any other city in the country.
What can policymakers, whether it's California or more specifically here in Los Angeles, learn? Clearly, in a post-COVID-19 world where you've got all these task forces now designed to help companies get back to work and to support job opportunities and job activities, what can LA area policymakers do specifically? How can this work inform their role in particularly supporting LGBTQ entrepreneurs going forward, since we really do need more hands on deck to grow this economy from where we are now?
StartOut has had a number of partnerships with governmental agencies that provided training specifically for the LGBT community. So that's probably one area that could be quite helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, StartOut, you mentioned the support from JP Chase. I know you have a number of seminars and other programs. How do you go about building these partnerships? What these partnerships look like, and who is the ideal partner for StartOut? Are they banks? Are they investors? Or is it government, academic organizations? What are the types of collaborations that can help drive this work?
Well, we've had a number of really terrific collaborations. Probably one of the most powerful has been in San Francisco. A law firm has donated some space to allow StartOut to have an incubator. It's called the StartOut Growth Lab.
Okay.
And I want to say we're on our, fourth or fifth cohort of entrepreneurs that have gone through the program. There are also statistics, unfortunately, I don't have them in front of me, of how many millions of dollars have been raised by groups that have gone through the program. So that's really, one of our most successful. But in general, we have banks, law firms, various tech firms, a couple of foundations have been extremely generous. Really, folks that are just really trying to focus on underrepresented companies, or really provide support for entrepreneurs in the underrepresented community.
Traditionally for entrepreneurs, the path to success is to, raise money, ultimately sell, move on to the next venture. Is that the same path for the startup entrepreneurs? And are there any notable successes here in the greater LA region that you can highlight for the group?
Yes, definitely on the entrepreneur front. It's really that same path of raising capital and various A rounds, B rounds, and ultimately exits. I'm trying to think of the best example. A great example is Hernan Lopez of Wondery. He's been very active in StartOut. He was most recently on a panel of ours, very inspiring to the community, and he's built he left Fox International,
right,
and he's based right here in LA, and has created one of the leading podcast companies in the country.
Well, we should get to know him for sure.
And then also another real success story is Reverie. I don't know if you've ever
yes
met
Reverie.
Damien, but they're a media platform, and they're global. They're very they do LGBT content,
right.
And Damien was a member of the LA programming board, and they're doing a great job.
Well, that's great. What I want to turn to next, certainly this is really big news of late. Certainly June 15th was quite a day when the Supreme Court ruled that federal law protects workers from job discrimination based on sexual orientation and expression. And until that time, there were 27 states, surprisingly, that didn't have statewide laws banning such discrimination. Can you share any thoughts on the ruling and its impact on StartOut and the StartOut entrepreneurial community?
I was completely shocked. I did not expect that to happen. In the fact that it was passed 6-3 was really unbelievable. At the same time, I think, wow, the fact that I'm even shocked that we're now prevented from being fired in 29 states. Maybe I just have a low bar of tolerance, but
right.
No, it's just in an era where it just seems like it's just constant backtracking on our rights. To have a major momentous win like that is just stunning.
Chris, given the ruling, but also thinking about the stats that you just shared from GLAAD and what seemed to be a large percentage of individuals who still had a discomfort level with LGBTQ bosses and founders, I'm wondering, what the practical effect of the ruling might be, or, how this informs the work of StartOut and organizations like yours in moving this dialogue further.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sarah Kate Ellis, the CEO of GLAAD, she always says you can't legislate acceptance. Regardless of what it says, what the law says, okay, well, great, now we can't be fired, but we still have a third of the country that is not comfortable having an openly gay CEO. So, success is a great indicator, watching the community getting economic empowerment, it really goes a long way.
Well, certainly, entrepreneurs forge their own path just to follow their dreams, but they also desire to be their own boss. But we also know that any number choose the path of entrepreneurship simply because the existing job environment in which they work is just not working for them. So do you think the ruling will have an impact on the pace of entrepreneurs, people, sort of leaving corporate America to start out and start their own thing, or will people, stick with the corporate path?
I mean, I certainly hope so. That's an interesting question because, in one sense, being the CEO, being your own boss means you probably can't be fired unless you're fired by your board.
Or your clients.
Right? Or your clients, right. So, hopefully, hopefully this really will do a lot towards, equality, especially in the parts of the country that, historically have not been very supportive of the LGBT community. I mean, one of the really sad things about the index is how few entrepreneurs there are outside of the major cities. I think Texas was one of the states where you could be fired for being gay, and pretty challenging starting a company where in an environment where there's that much risk.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's no longer the case.
Chris, this is really great, and we love the work that StartOut is doing. How can others get involved in supporting this exciting work, and how can budding entrepreneurs find you all? I know you said a lot of it's word of mouth, but how can we amplify the work that you all are doing?
Well, we have a great website. We spent a fortune on it. It's called StartOut.org, and there are a lot of really great tools. We have a mentorship program where you can sign up to be a mentee or a mentor. I've done it 3 times. I've been a mentor 3 times, and it's really been incredible. I'm still in touch with everyone that I've mentored. We have an access to capital page where VCs and investors can connect with LGBT entrepreneurs. Our central office, which is based in San Francisco, they send out a monthly report of new members or new people who have signed up on the Access to Capital portal. We've got research, as I discussed, and then our programming. All of our programming is listed. You can sign up to be on our email list. Probably the highlight of the programming year is the demo day, where we have usually between 5 or 6 entrepreneurs who pitch to a panel of experts, investors, and it's terrific. When we put out a request, I wasn't sure whether we were ever going to have even a lot of response locally, but I think the first time we did it, we had 20 companies that wanted to pitch with LGBT founders. Yeah, really quite spectacular. So a lot of great programs, a lot of panels, and absolutely get involved and get on our email list.
Before we conclude, obviously, the recent protests, which calls for more diversity, more inclusion, more justice, et cetera. How is StartOut itself addressing underrepresented communities within the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, we have 3 separate initiatives. We have the Latinx program, the African American program, and the Women-X, all supporting various entrepreneurs. We've really staffed up our board. We have gender diversity, we have racial diversity, we have geographic diversity, which has been incredibly helpful. We try to elevate on every panel. We try to have broad representation from gender, race, and we're really trying to do everything we can to promote that. Goldman Sachs gave a scholarship program to the Latinx community just recently, and we had 35 applicants who got access to our mentorship program. We also have an in-house advisor that helps them. We're working on an event with some great sponsorship, which I probably can't say yet, but for the African American community. We were planning to do it in October in Atlanta. It doesn't look like we're going to be doing that right away, but really trying to focus on the underrepresented groups within our community as well.
Well, that's terrific. We really appreciate the work that you all are doing, and this has been a great conversation, and we're really excited to follow the progress that you all are making and have you and or some of your colleagues or some of these great entrepreneurs come onto the show down the road. What we're going to try to do with every episode is we'd like to conclude by getting to know our guest a little bit more and also getting to know your Los Angeles. So we have a few lightning round questions. We've got a sample size of about 10 or 11, and we will pick 3 or 4 of those, which we won't tell you in advance. So, this is the opportunity for us to get to know your Los Angeles. So we're going to start by asking, where are you from originally?
I grew up just north of Hartford, Connecticut.
Ah, Connecticut, okay. And which neighborhood do you live in currently, or do you care to expose that information?
I live near Larchmont Boulevard.
Gotcha. Favorite restaurant or top 2 restaurants in Los Angeles?
I love Gracias Madre, one of my favorites. And this is going to sound really funny coming from a pescatarian, but I love Mastro's too.
Ah, steak.
I don't eat.
Okay.
I like their Brussels sprouts and some other things, but yeah, I enjoy going there.
And when you have East Coast friends in from Connecticut, what's your favorite spot to take them in Los Angeles?
Runyon, Malibu. Depending if they're younger, I might bring. If they have kids, they tend to like the Grove.
Okay, interesting. Rams or Chargers?
I have no idea.
Don't care. Okay.
I couldn't say. I'm really not a great sports enthusiast.
Okay. Uber, Lyft, yellow cab, bike, bus, walk, metro, or scooter?
Big bike rider.
Bike rider. Okay. Well, we like that. Well, Chris, thank you very much. This has been a great dialogue, and we really appreciate you coming onto the program, and we appreciate the work that you're doing, that StartOut's doing for the community. We will, again, continue to follow your progress, and certainly we'll post in the show notes StartOut's website for others to access as well. So, Chris, Fraley, thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you'll join us again next week. In the meantime, stay strong and get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com. And we hope you'll connect with us on social media, on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.